three. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Courtyard. This is going to be a thematic episode, so it's not going to be kind of any updates on news or analysis of more current events. This is going to be I guess, mini series on kind of understanding the party state, or rather the Chinese political system and how it operates, and more importantly, how it works in practice. Just before we get into it, we have some announcements. Upcoming episodes will feature guests who will be discussing a range of topics, including the recently signed in principle China-EU, what is a comprehensive agreement on investment, CAI.
Yes, it's CAI.
Yep. We'll also be discussing the RCEP, which is a regional comprehensive economic partnership.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's partnership. Yeah.
Right. We'll also be discussing some other topics such as like China's economic predicament, as well as China-EU relations, China-South Asia relations.
And of course, we'll have a special episode on Taiwan.
Okay. Perfect. That's you were going to bring that guest, so I'll leave that to you.
Don't worry about it. I already have secured my rogue agent.
Okay. We also have we just implemented a news feed kind of thing on our website at www.cerciusgroup.com, which is we're going to be publishing kind of short articles on there periodically.
Yeah, we'll keep it short, and this will be, let's say, because it's very time consuming to translate everywhere, so we'll just kind of post the English version directly on the website. And if you don't want to go directly on the website, you can also follow us on Twitter. So that might be easier because everything will be posted there. So you only have to go on Twitter and click, and you'll get directly to the post.
Yeah, and Twitter handle is at CerciusG, CerciusG. You can follow us there, and updates, any kind of announcements will also be made there. Cool.
Exactly.
Anything else before we dive in to the?
No, but like you said, it's really about understanding the party, but it will be based on, let's say, I guess news, but it's more of I'll start on a commentary on the news. So I'll comment something and then I'm diving into the issue regarding what they're saying, basically. Because otherwise, because I remember when I used to teach, this is so dry. So it needs to come from somewhere that's a little bit more moist, I'd say. So I'm starting with a quote from someone, and we're going to dive into that and explain why that makes absolutely no sense. So basically, this is where we're going to go afterwards.
Right.
So
we don't really have a set structure for this. So I think we'll try to do our best to explain anything that we deem not immediately clear. But obviously, if listeners, if the audience has any questions, hit us up on Twitter. Just tag us and ask it, and then we'll try to answer these in subsequent episodes.
Yeah, because usually, like, some of these topics would need hours of course. So like I need to do like maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. So sometimes I think the longest one of these would be 6 hours in class. So we're really compressing the information, going straight to what is the issue at hand and how it should be understood for the listener. Because and basically this will revolve around one main issue, which is overestimating versus underestimating the party, or sometimes the state, or the economy in general. And you need to dive into details to understand why sometimes when some people, reporters or politicians, say things about China, why it makes sense or why it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So this will be, let's say, the objective of this maybe sub-series of small episodes in between updates and guest appearances.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, we don't have a set structure, so it might be a bit all over the place. But again, we'll try to do our best to explain the concepts that are 100% foreign to most people. From that, you okay? Go.
Yeah. I'm good. Before I really dive in the core commentary I've read, there's maybe one or two things like the Chinese sanctions regarding the 28 American officials. I mean, that's laughable at best. It just goes to show like this is absolutely pointless. I have no clue why people are reporting on this because um, let's say punishing Chinese agent for not being able to come to the U.S. or stuff like this can actually hurt because some of them actually do have money abroad, which is not always the case for American officials or ex diplomats and stuff like this. So again, just something funny or seeing as retaliation when in fact it's just crying foul as per usual. And something that caught my eye is that I want to get your take on this one. This is a survey, but it really connects to the topic that I want to cover afterwards. Europeans believe that China will overtake US in a decade. I was like, oh man, like I get what you're trying to say, the rising power and the whole demeanor on the international landscape. Like I get the point, but so many things can go wrong within just a few months, and now you're taking this long-term view like in a decade. Like hold on, we know that US is a constant, and in 10 years it will still be as good or as shitty as it is depending on how you see it. Like it really depends, it's going to be as good or as shitty. Same. The
Yeah.
Chinese party, the Chinese party state, I mean, 10 years is a very, very long stretch of time. Just
You
a year is a lot. And so many things could go wrong at any given moment. So, will they overtake US in a decade? I don't think so. They have so many issues to deal with. Expressing their power on the international landscape should be the least of their worries right now, honestly. So this idea that you have this big bad China lurking around ready to take over, I'm like, you guys are overestimating him so much. It's just so sad. Like I get the paranoia of it all, that people, oh yeah, they have agents there, they're doing this. Yeah, sure, but look, they get caught all the time, which is not the case. Like, but what I mean is like you seldom hear about U.S. agents being caught. You seldom hear about, let's say, Israeli agents getting caught, but you hear so much about Chinese agents getting caught or researchers taking physical copy of things and then they get caught at the border. I'm like, wow, like you guys have the best agents. This is so sad. So just trying to tone down this idea that China will become the ultimate power. They don't want to be in this position because they don't want the responsibility at all. And we'll go back to that maybe at the end of what I want to cover afterwards. So this is just like the first comment that I'm drawing this conversation from. And the second one is just a quote from Blinken. I think he said that like what was it? Anthony Blinken? Yeah. So like 2 or 3 days ago, I think he said there was a broad consensus that economic liberalization in China would lead to political liberalization. That did not happen. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, are you fucking kidding? No, first, again, this is, let's say, the stepping stone towards what I want to talk about. There were no consensus on that whatsoever. Your delusional ass was thinking, oh yeah, like oh yeah, the liberalization will definitely bring in the the middle class, and the middle class will want to emancipate from the authoritarian state. No, absolutely not. This is not how it works. When you say that, you basically say that all the literature referring to authoritarian resilience doesn't exist. And to be fair, the best authors are from the US, and they have explained the situation so well over the year. I have no clue where he's taking the assumption that this would lead to liberalization. And what he's not saying, he was expecting, yeah, China should democratize. No, it shouldn't. And maybe it won't. Like, you need to live with that. And that's just how it is. You need to learn to deal with different system in a different way. Don't expect in a like utopian fiction that this will turn out to be exactly what you want it to be. And this is why, like, you see, I wouldn't say Americans, because Americans are pretty usually on top of the game when it's time to deal with authoritarian systems. But that's why, like, Europeans are like way out of the game. Canadians are absolutely clueless because they're delusional as to how things should be handled with the authoritarian state. So my main point here, and this is where we'll start, is basically one simple question. It's like why the Chinese Communist Party has succeeded, where a lot of other one-party state or authoritarian system have failed. This is the core question. And we used to have like this, let's say, a conversation regarding norm-bound succession or some form of
Wait. Hold on. Hold
meritocracy.
on. Hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
I think we should explain why um, the difference. I guess for some people who are not familiar with like political science literature, the difference between authoritarianism and totalitarianism. This is what we don't describe the Chinese system as a totalitarian system, and
Yeah,
describe.
I still don't understand why people use this word
Yeah,
because I assume there are differences in Francophone versus Anglophone literature, but what it's referred to usually as is the total state, the state that is local to, that is trying to control every single aspect of the citizenry, but also it has a project to reform the citizen to its own image. And we have seen a Chinese totalitarian state in the past from 49 to 76. You can definitely make the case that, yeah, they have destroyed or remodeled the citizenry according to the new socialist and communist program. Yeah, absolutely, you can make that case. But from, let's say, 78 or early 80s up until 2013, even up until now, but let's say for the sake of argument, we'll stop it at 2013. No, you're talking about like neo-authoritarian state or a like a transition from the total state to a more authoritarian state. So, and the authoritarian state is really it depends how you see it. Sometimes it's a hardcore bureaucracy, like you can see in South Korea, although it's not an authoritarian state anymore, but it's built on the remnants of the authoritarian state. Or again, Singapore, which is, for all sake and argument, a democracy based on the single party state with still authoritarian uh, remnants inside, so a more authoritarian bureaucracy. But for the Chinese state, it's really using surveillance and trying to divest from, let's say, the use of more military intervention and police intervention inside the society and replacing that with different style of governance mechanism. And this is what you're seeing. So using cultural idioms to control society and or a more virtual self-inflicted sometimes surveillance and or uh, controlling apparatus. So you absolutely need to distinguish between the totalitarian state versus authoritarianism in general, because you can have pockets of authoritarianism. For example, you can have that in Mexico, sub-authoritarian, sub-national authoritarian pockets and stuff like this. But to qualify the party state today as totalitarian, I feel is misguided. Like, or you're just trying to build it as more powerful than it actually is, or you're still living in the 70s.
yeah,
And some people might call me delusional for that, but like honestly speaking, people are not buying into propaganda anymore like they used to during the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. Like people were really completely surrounded and like, let's say, there was nothing else. But the subsequent opening paved the way for people to actually understand that propaganda is propaganda, and whatever the party state says is not necessarily true. And but they act as if, because you need to play by the rules. But reframing the core citizenry or having a new project for the future of China in terms of ideology, these are just words now. Like people are talking about it, like the well-off society or all are going back to socialism. Like, yeah, okay, these are great words, but nobody buys into that anymore. And I feel sometimes that, I mean, again, you're giving way too much credit for what it is in reality.
Yeah, there's we're definitely not we're not in the Cultural Revolution days, and I think people who describe China and the party state as totalitarianism, um, just they don't understand what goes on in China and how the system works. And like you said, like these people are giving the party state way too much credit. Like maybe it wants to be totalitarian, but it just in practice it can't. It can't control that many aspects. It's too many moving parts. Um, and especially since the reforms and you have introduction of like foreign elements, foreign culture, fashion, food, like all these things happening. It's just it's impossible to maintain a totalitarian system. So
No, but I think, and I get the point that people hate communism, um, especially in the U.S. And the people are qualifying totalitarianism or using that word are the same people that are saying that their own state has dive into authoritarianism, for example, in the U.S. and sometimes even in Europe or France, particularly in France. So I'm saying, like, okay, just hold that thought and like look around you where you are, and if that's an authoritarian state, okay, I'll accept the fact that maybe China is totalitarian according to whatever you feel. But in reality, um, the use of force has dramatically decreased over the years. But if we had to put it on a continuum to make a better argument or a better case, you would start by 1976, 1949 to 1976. You have the total state under Mao or Maoism, and where ideology is a key to controlling the masses. Then you dive into a harder style of, let's say, authoritarian system, so neo-authoritarianism from the 80s up until the 90s. And then you have a softer form of authoritarian state from, let's say, I guess 1998, 1999 up until 2013. And then you have a progressive movement that, let's say, backwards, going back to a slightly harder form of authoritarianism in China today. I feel that would be the best way to describe how the system has progressed or regressed towards a new control mechanism in the recent years under Xi Jinping.
yep, and I think even so just a quick side note. Even though uh, monitoring technology with the advent of like machine learning and better monitoring systems all throughout China, the ironic thing is that recent court rulings throughout China have shown a preference to towards protecting like the privacy of individual citizens. Now, obviously, how it actually works in practice um, is going to be different to how how these rulings are handed out. But it does show that the legal system in China, which is still very fragmented and I would say immature, there is a developing concern for the sheer amount of data that is present available and to what extent this data should be held by by the state, of course, but by private companies. There is an ongoing debate in the legal community there about to what extent a private company should be able to collect facial recognition data on people who pass through their stores, etc. So um, this is not something you would expect in a totalitarian system. So again, it would be incorrect or misguided to describe the Chinese system as totalitarian at this point in time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so if you start back from that and you're saying, like, okay, we expected that from the Chinese system, again, these are misguided assumptions. You should never assume that because it worked for you, that it's going to work for others. And to be fair, this road, let's say through the middle class, is less and less available to other cases. So, and again, to be fair, people often forget what created the middle class. It's the fact that the party state allows it to exist through opening rent spaces inside of its total control. So, I mean, why would you rebel against the thing that feeds you? That's and again, and why are so many industrials or sometimes SOE leaders or private enterprise owners? Why are they sanctioned by the party? Because they exist because the party allows it, and that's the rule of the game. And as soon as you forget that, well, of course, the party's not going to be happy. It's like, hey, I allow you to become a billionaire, and this is how you repay me. Basically, that's the logic behind all of that. And the state is very strong in co-opting these people usually because they know that they're able to make all of this money and have this lifestyle because the party allows it. So of course the middle class has absolutely no reason to rebel because, and this is something that people often forget. If you put democracy in China today, um, who will lose the most? You think?
I mean, middle class.
But you remember when we did like the mapping in class, for example, you have East China versus West China, and you have North versus South. You have different quadrants of people, and the balance of the votes would be between West and Southwest. A lot of it, like hundreds of millions of people still living in the countryside. So, and then if you start advertising redistributing of riches through a democracy or through a democratic system, so who
Oh,
has the most to lose? Like if you think about it properly, the East Coast elite has no incentive whatsoever in letting the rural areas dominate the political landscape whatsoever. So you're not gonna see a movement that pushes for democracy in the East Coast, especially not for people who have money and power. Because if the system changes, they will lose most of that. Because again, people are very petty. If the system changes, oh man, are we going back to anti-rightist campaign from the early 40s when people are possessions were just taken, burned, and people were killed. Oh man, this is gonna go down hard because there's massive resent. So like, oh no, this is gonna be good. Oh whoa. So if we go back to the idea that the party state evolves and change over time, like we went from a revolutionary party to a more ruling party, um, and this idea of the ruling party has consolidated between 1989 and 2003, and from that moment on the party is really trying to adapt itself to a lot of the unintended consequences of the reform and or previous institutional arrangements. So this is what is happening. So that's why you often feel like crossing the river by feeling the stone. It's exactly that. The party is always dealing with unintended consequences of things that happened before. So the party is always in a reactive mode, and that's why sometimes policy don't make any sense. But when you look at the grander scheme of things, this is just how the party works. It always tries to adapt, bring in for new policies for its continuous rule and yeah, over China basically.
yeah, the you do have to hand it to them that they, I don't know if it was designed consciously or just the fact that it's been built. I mean, it's become this way. Is that probably because of the failings of kind of the first Maoist period, when they first kind of, after they established sovereignty over China and then tried to become a ruling party, and the mistakes that were made during that era. I think that deeply, that scar runs so deep that it has taught the party state that, like, look, man, winning a war is not the same as ruling a country, and you have to have mechanisms that allow you to adapt and respond to changing circumstances both at home and abroad, right? So you do have to hand it to them that the system, even to this day, is still quite, I guess, flexible to a certain extent. Although if
Oh,
we go back
flexible
to,
is the key. It's the
yeah,
key.
if we go back to the spectrum we were talking about earlier, I think let's say since 2013, it's become a bit more rigid. As a
Yeah, yeah, no, but that'd be fair. That would be a fair observation.
And I think a key thing to remember is that we always talk about the economic reforms that happen in China from kind of like a structural point of view, right? So you have the opening of the financial sector, the kind of semi-privatization of state-owned enterprises. Nobody ever really notices the kind of political reforms that happen within the party because they don't happen in the form of an announcement or of a policy change, right? Um, and I think this is a part where the party state really does not the world does not give the party state enough credit on this front. Is that from 1949, the party state has evolved drastically, and a lot of it was done from kind of their internal impetus or external impetus. But the fact that they have survived this long is a testament to their adaptability as a political system.
Oh, absolutely. And um, you have also to give them props for their reactive capabilities, like in terms of dealing, let's say, with local grievances. And this is something we've talked about a lot in the classroom before. Um, the difference here is one of life and death, because in the democratic system, worst comes to worst, it's going to be a government change. So, no big deal. Budget doesn't pass. This is the, there's a vote of no confidence. I mean, tough luck. Better luck next time. That's the worst that's gonna happen. But here, if cadres fuck up, people are gonna die. Like they're literally gonna die. So you need to give them props for that. Dealing with local grievances has a whole different significance in China. You have to do things not because you absolutely want to do it, but you know that if you don't do it, it's going to create problems that are going to be so like massive to deal with that at some point people will rebel and they will kill you. And this happens all the time in the countryside. Like cadres will die, people will rebel, riots, depending on the policies. Like the one child policy implementation was one of the best example. Like, yeah, I'm going to send people to implement that. Good luck. Like it's going to be fun. Like your life insurance is definitely not covering that. Oh man. So dealing with local, the fact that they are not only willing but able to deal sometime in a very efficient way with local grievances, like setting up social a social net structure, although not the best, but still they didn't have to do it. They didn't have to do it. So doing that, and also all the provision of social goods, like you provide an education system, you literally offer all the services to a population, like out of your own design. And you also create institutions that will regulate between people and you vouch for them. Although, I mean, you don't have really a choice to vouch for them. And to be fair, you're not really responsible when it comes to the people. Like, if the justice system doesn't work, I mean, tough luck. You have one, doesn't really work, but hey, that's as good as we get for now.
Wait,
You know,
wait, but just even on the justice system part, right? Like now we're getting to the point where China's like, oh shit, like our doors are open, foreign enterprises coming in. We can't just, brute force our way to find solutions. We actually have to set up a system that to a certain extent resembles some kind of legitimate functioning system, right? That's why they're trying so hard now to kind of, I don't want to say reform the courts, but at least have the courts, work properly and have a regulatory system that works properly. And they're really paying more attention to the softer side of governance now. Whereas if
they
you,
have to.
yeah, that's what I mean, right? Like, whereas if you were 10, 20 years ago, man,
Oh, whoa.
regulatory regulatory system, legal system, man, none of that shit works. But now, like, you see a turn towards the party moving more weight onto its courts and its regulatory authorities to manage the economy at large.
Yeah, and like you said, like um, it works to a certain degree, which is good. And again, they didn't have to. If you really don't want to, you want to go the road of like North Korea, you don't have to make anything work. You don't have to. But you don't have to. Like you technically have no obligations if you just want to rule through the army or through physical violence. You don't have to provide anything whatsoever. So the fact that the party is really seeing itself as a ruling party, as a governing party, makes a huge difference in the way it handles managing the population. And like you said, now, and especially for the last decade or so, the importance of rules is becoming adamant. Why? Because um, it's a way to legitimize the state, and you need to abide by the rules even when you're the state to prove that we did that, we abide by some rules, hence the rules are good, and they're legit, like the real ones. And that's why you won't see, like, for example, cases like during the Cultural Revolution, like they won't be policing, rather than like putting your name on a board with your face and like, hey baby, this is gonna be your day. Like, you won't see this anymore. Like, there's proper police and there's detention center, although there's still some form of arbitrary in this, but we have progressed so much from that towards what we have today, that it's kind of like sometimes it's very unfair to depict the Chinese society as under authoritarian rule, and like, oh yeah, the people are being persecuted. Like, I mean, it depends. If you play according to the rules,
Yep.
you're fine.
Yep.
Like, you
Everyone,
know where the
and the
boundaries
thing is,
are.
the thing is, everyone knows the rules,
Exactly.
right? This is why it always blows my mind when like a foreign missionary who's working under a religion that is banned in China. Now, whether or not you think it should be banned or not is a completely different issue. That's separate to the point. The point is, this is, you're working for something that's not allowed. Okay, and then you get detained and you disappear. Kind of your fault. You knew the rules.
Exactly. So that's why sometimes, like, it's very hard to be sympathetic to people that are getting taken away, people that disappear or get imprisoned randomly. Because most of the time, when you get the case on paper, it's like, okay, yeah, but uh, you were affiliated with that institution which is banned in China. What do you expect? Like, what were you expecting? Like, come on. Like, you knew it was bound to happen. So why are you? I sometimes, like you said, it blows my mind to see people that are, or sometimes the journalists. Oh yeah, they're fighting for human rights. Yeah, I get the point, but the rules are that the party dictates the term on which things can be reported. If you're not willing to accept the terms, don't do that job.
Or if
Do
you do,
something else
or if you
or
do,
report from somewhere else.
or if you do the job, just accept accept the risks. The risks are baked into what you're doing, so you can't really cry foul when it goes.
No, you can't. And you see, that's why when, like, for example, party cadres get arrested for corruption, why they don't appeal? Well, first reason is usually that if you appeal, like, the party will just grab your family, and it's gonna be a party in there. But there's also the fact that they knew what they were doing. They knew that technically it's not allowed, although it's rampant. But if you get caught, you just take it like a man. Like, you take it like a champ, and yeah, it's just too bad, man. You got caught. That's why most of them will not appeal anything, because if
No,
you appeal, like, you would break another rule. Like, you knew what you were getting yourself into. You knew that you accepted bribes. Unfortunately, today it's your turn. You're not on the good side anymore. I mean, tough shit, but you should have known. That's why people like Wu Xiaohui, for example, like, man, like, you should have known. Like, your family history dictates that there's going to be problems for you. You should have known that. Same for Jack Ma. Like, you should have known the people that you associate with are not the friends of the current leadership, and you dare say things regarding the overall financial system, which was established by the party over decades. Although, again, not the best, but still. So, like, you know that,
yeah, and
and
it's the
yet
same.
and yet you decide to go out of your way to just shaft yourself. Like, I don't, like, this is something, again, blows my mind.
And the same can be said for those fucking Trump administration like officials and staffers who are like, "Oh, I'm scared. I can't find another job." It's like, you knew, you knew what you signed up for. You knew the reputational drawbacks to working for this administration, and you still went for it. So you pay for your actions. So it is what it is.
Well,
Like,
it's the same for people like I mean, we won't dive into this issue today, but the same goes for like people dealing or managing Xinjiang at the moment. Like this was just something like at some point people will be outraged so much that there's going to be sanctions. Like you couldn't, like you had to know that walking in that position that it comes with strong status inside the party because you're able to deal with things and you're following the party line on whatever is asked of you in that specific autonomous region. But at the same time, that people outside are gonna spit on you hard, and you're gonna be like China bound for the rest of your life
oh yeah,
after that. But that it's a given. So that's why sometimes again, like people, oh, they're not allowed to leave. Yeah, sure, but first, like, how come you only know about the Bingtuan existence today? Like, this also is something I don't understand, because like, I mean, this is something that existed for like, I think I'm not sure if it's since the beginning, but it should be close to it. Because in the 60s and the 70s, you had Bingtuan in Xinjiang. So I don't get it. Like, why this becomes outrageous now? Like, you should have known all of that way before.
but there's
So
more reporting on it now, though. That's the difference. Is that well now is also like people give a shit about what China does. So I mean
yeah,
everything's
I mean, yeah, sure, I guess. Yeah, they give a shit. Yeah, but they could have given a shit 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like, I mean, sure, I guess if you want to be the outrage mob has moved towards that, sure, I get it. But in reality, the real outrage mob should have been there decades ago, which is kind of hypocritical if you really think about it.
yeah. I mean, fuck, sure, I guess, but
A little, a little.
um, okay. Moving on to the next thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
so there's one more distinction that maybe I wanted to make. It's related to, let's say, what we call the logic of political survival and resilience. So people talking about like for the survival of the regime, it's not exactly that because the party is not merely surviving; it's always in resilient mode. Surviving is really DPRK, so it's North Korea. Like it's just barely nose above the water, just a little above the water. Not dead, but like not fully alive. But the party state is not, let's say, following the LPS logic, the logic of political survival, because they were successful in implementing and creating institution, assessing uh, grievances and stuff like this, and also creating a way and patterns for people to rise above the ranks and join upper class and middle class. And these people are allowed to do so many things in China in terms of like real restriction. If you really think about it, there's so many things you can do that you could never do here if you're Chinese middle class or upper middle class. So that's why sometimes, like for people who have actually a lot of money and they're really play by the rules, I used to hear them complain a lot when they come here, like how everything is dirty, service is shit, and it's not super expensive. But again, the quality of things is not very good. And I keep telling people like, are things always very cheap in China? No, no. They just send us the cheap shit. They keep the good shit over there. That's exactly that. And real rich, let's say, the rich class or the upper class, uh, you won't see them trying to really establish themselves outside because the upside of staying is so high. Although now again, um, with the hardening of the system or it's becoming more rigid, maybe there's more incentive to leave. But I think you know what I mean.
yeah. The middle class yeah. Again, if you're playing by the rules, there's a lot of advantages for you if you're playing by the rules and you know how to continue to play by the rules. Because again, if you're not bothering the party largely just leaves you alone and lets you do what you want. It's when you start messing with them, um, when that's when things become bad for you. And again, it's kind of like seeing it as an investment, right? Do you believe the party will continue to be competent for the foreseeable future, or for maybe one or two generations down the line? That comes into the calculus of whether or not middle class in China decide to remain or immigrate elsewhere. But overall, it's really just about playing by the rules of the game.
Yeah, it is by playing by the rules of the game. Absolutely. And like we've said before, like again, if you're really low profile, you could do almost anything, which includes driving in reverse on the highway,
Yeah,
and yet you won't be even arrested. You won't get arrested. And remember, we were that car once.
it wasn't the
And
highway.
again,
It wasn't the highway. It wasn't the
it
highway.
was it was a merging point for the highway, which is even worse because there was, I think there were two lines merging to go on the highway with two other lines getting out of the highway, and we just crossed the entire thing. We just shoved ourselves right across the 6 lanes.
Bro, we had to get to somewhere, bro. There was no time.
But what I'm saying is, since this is not really dangerous, I mean, relatively not dangerous. Like there was no police. You didn't get arrested. Nothing happened. And there was once a joke. I was saying like, we could almost start at the amount of drug labs that must be hidden somewhere, like all across small villages, must be amazing. Because like some buildings, you look at them like you guess what's in there. Like I have no clue. Like you would never know what's in there. And since policing is really not as intense as people think, and sometimes maybe it should be a little bit more. It should be a little bit more sometimes because I've seen things, very bad things. Yeah, so they could operate right in front of you, broad daylight, and nobody would never know. And this sometimes is troubling because you would never be able to do that here. You would never be able. But there, again, like if you go in some districts, sometimes you'll never see a police car. You'll see, oh man, a police station, that hole in the wall with two stairs. Like there's just one dude or one chick in there with a hat, and she's having none of that. Like you remember, she's not like venturing out.
Yeah,
She's not venturing out.
honestly, I'm sure the narcotics divisions of Chinese police is probably pretty bad if you think about it. Like they don't have that amount of experience, that the North American cops or European cops have. So I'm sure you could set up a drug lab like dead center, some like I don't know tier 3 city, and like maybe even just outside a police station. They'd never figure it out.
Well, you remember that steroids are still overly available on like Taobao and like Jingdong. Like you can still buy steroids today if you know exactly what keywords. You're good. Like like I mean, and they're made there and they're shipped to you, and they're like, bro, this is amazing. Because like we used to see a guy, like we used to call him Gyno. His nickname Gyno. He was like, no, I'm not taking anything. Like, bro, like, come on, get the fuck out, man. Like, you're drugged up, as you're juicy as hell.
Is this
Yes,
is this the dude who front squats 4 plates but can barely bench one? Is this the guy?
yeah, that was the guy, but I think they died, or I think one of them died. I recall my friend told me. But again, the same dude who got you the room in that place, the same dude who has two phones for different occupations. Uh, like he used to tell me, like it depends on what you need. Like you can get whatever you like. Like you want synthetic or real, like we can get it. I was like, are you shitting me, man? Like, yeah, I just need to call. Like, and he said, oh yeah, it's just in the new remote district there. That's the new thing. And again, I was like, yeah, that makes sense because like nobody would be caught dead in that place because it's so remote. Like these new like Xin Tai Fa district, all these things. Like nobody goes there. Like again, dude, they could be like mad prostitute rings in there, and nobody would never know. You wouldn't know, and that was always amazing. Because in more, let's say the downtown place, you will see like the red patches and stuff like this around to keep the peace. But as soon as you step out of that, Find a police officer. I dare you, man. I challenge you. Find a police officer. And that's why people like take pictures in Beijing. Oh, look, the guy has the gun. Yeah, because it's Beijing, you butt fuck. Like, oh man, like, come on, like, hello, like, what? Like, of course there will be armed guards, like, duh. But as soon as you get to second tier city or third tier city, like sometimes, like I remember the only way you'll see police officers. Oh man, and this is a good story that, and I think we can conclude on that. We can conclude on that for today. Maybe at the train station, and I remember no, there were no security at the bus station. I remember, right? It was only the driver. We only give the tickets. Like we could have started a riot right there, and nobody could have stopped us.
Yeah, there's very minimal public security. And keep in mind, don't forget where I'm from, right? Like where I'm from,
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
dude.
But
There's
you
no,
remember at the train
there's
station
no,
that dude
there's
that
no traffic laws from my hometown. Like,
oh yeah, bro. The traffic, bro. You need to just be a baller and just cross the street like a boss.
bro, there's
Never hesitate.
no traffic.
Never hesitate.
And one time, I remember my aunt was driving me somewhere in my hometown, and then she's got all okay. Most cars in China are manual, right? And
Yeah.
then she fucked up switching the gears. So like so you know what happens when you fuck up?
Oh no,
we just we were just parked in the middle of like a four
bro,
lane intersection.
bro. You need to own. You need to own that. You need to absolutely own
Bro,
it.
the best part, she didn't even panic. She was like, "Oh, this happens pretty often."
Oh yeah, bro. Who cares? Like, come on, man. Come on, come on, come on, come on. No, but like you remember at the train station, like there was like, I think outside there were a little bit more security, but again, like looking at them, none of them would be there on time if shit goes down. And that lady at the counter validating the tickets, bro. Again, she's so not getting beaten.
No.
Just like that dude, bro. That dude. I'm gonna let you reminisce the story.
Oh yeah. Okay, so basically what happened was uh we were lining up to get into the station, and for some reason the guy behind me pushed me, like he shoved me, and then I turn around and this dude is probably what, like five,
Maybe 5'4", 5'4", 5'3".
yeah, middle-aged, fat, and he for a second looked like he wanted to start something. And then we squared up, and he just
Oh man.
he
And he
backed
calmed
down.
he calmed down. I think he realized
He
like
really he saw his life flashing before his eyes. He gave up. He
because
just
keep in mind, I think at this time you were still a bit bloated, and I'm on a regular bloated. I think at the time we represented a wall of like, let's say, a solid 450 right in front of him,
and
and the look on that security agent's face will I will remember that forever.
bro, she wanted
Priceless.
nothing. She wanted no part of it.
Bro, you can see the urge. It's like I want to escape. I don't want to be here when shit goes.
That was incredible. That was great.
Like you can
Never
see the fear in her eyes. Like, oh man, if this starts shit, like I'm gonna die.
I've never seen somebody like change their attitude so fast, because he really looked like he wanted to he looked like he wanted to start something. And then we turned
Well, just
around.
like that dude on the bicycle. Like he was really trying to square up,
Oh,
but like I was
yes.
like, man, like you don't know what's about to happen to you, my friend.
And he just kept biking away while talking shit.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I don't know if you remember, but that was like mid afternoon, I think. There was still sunlight outside, right?
Yeah.
And like a police officer would hear that and he would just not intervene, like
No,
at all.
it's
So
not.
again, no. So people think like, oh yeah, we've been this and that, and like the police. Yeah, yeah. If you were like a Western tourist going to like, I'm going to Xinjiang, going to Tibet to do to get the lay of the land. Like, man, you're asking for trouble. Like you want it. You desperately want to report on that. But if you're just a chill dude or dudette, whatever whatever the feminine of dude is, like if you're just a chill dude, you're going, you're just like going to downtowns and the cafe. stuff like this, man. I if you ever see a police station or even a police officer, man, uh, aside for the ones that are taking the nap around time, like half in the car, half outside of the car,
Bro, I don't even think
like.
there's like police patrols throughout the cities.
But you remember, like you say that now, and I'm thinking, if I ever see a real patrol like on the run, I don't think so. I've seen a lot of cars like parked, for example, on the side of the freeway, but the guy was like half dead in, like just you knew he was like still not fully out of the nap. you know, I've seen like disheveled police officers at night eating like skewers and stuff with people around, and this is oh bro, proximity police, bro, proximity police. So and like people say, oh, but where were you in second tier cities? Like even in Shanghai, if you go just a little outside the boundaries of Xintiandi, because like you should never be there anyway. If you go like outside these boundaries, you will just see like the city is actually crappy. It's actually shitty. As soon as you go outside of that, it's shitty.
Oh, bro,
And
in Beijing, if you
yeah,
go outside of like what third ring or maybe fourth ring, oh
oh,
man,
it's shit. It's absolute garbage.
it's fucking awful.
And again, like people think, oh yeah, I've seen police officers ever. Like, where were you exactly? Did you spend all of your time in a train station or
I was just
in
gonna say that.
an airport or in an airport? Like I don't know. The only thing that's annoying is just to go report to the police station.
Oh,
Otherwise, and
yeah.
even then, it takes 2 minutes if you're not a moron. You don't even need to speak Chinese. They know what you're there for. That you don't even need language skill to do that. Like that is mesmerizing to me. Like you're like, oh, it's hard. It's like, really? Like seriously, is it that hard? Like I don't know, man. Maybe it's just you.
To be fair,
Like
when I went to Beida and they asked us to do our health check, that shit was difficult because like the address the school gave, like it just didn't pop on a map. So I mean, that was kind of hard because I didn't know
well,
like
you remember what also didn't pop up on the map that time we did field work. Like I think we wasted like around an hour to find the site and just to fall like we just find the door and it was an eviction paper notice
oh
right
yeah.
up the door. I was like, where are you guys? Like, bro, we're here, but like you've been evicted. What are you talking about? like like where are you? Because like we're here. People have confirmed that this is where it is, and like you've been evicted. What are you talking about?
Oh,
Oh man. But to be fair, it was great Japanese curry at least. I mean, according to you, it was medium. It was medium. It
bro,
was medium.
I don't even remember where we were. Okay, this is we'll do a separate episode on field work experiences, but you know,
Sure.
this is a good place to cut it off. I think that's gonna be it.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone.